Right, I've just rigged up a battery to the starter motor and the solenoid just to check it's working. So they're wired up to live to the solenoid and then live from the solenoid to the starter as per normal, and this is like the ignition switch. So we should see the solenoid pulling in, which A gives power to the starter and B thrusts the starter ring forwards to engage with what would be the ring gear, but obviously it's not there. So, all working well. Good stuff. Okay, in terms of removing this bendix mechanism, what it is, you've got a ring here with like a circlip underneath it. So what I've done is I take my socket and put it on, and with a hammer knock it back, and that then knocks the cover, this little cover, off the circlip. Right, so this is just a little split circlip. So then you can then lever the circlip off and then take the bendix off, which I'm not going to do because you also have to sort of remove all these springs and things, and it's a right fiddle. So yeah, I'm not unduly worried about it. It just, it just needs a bit of a clean. So I am just going to clean this. I'm not going to bother taking it off. I'll give it a clean, give it some grease. It's fine. I don't want to make work for myself. And that's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with it at all. So what I will do is just give it some grease, and then I will concentrate on doing the brushes, which I know will need doing. Okay, so I'm going to remove this end cover, which has got the brushes in. And these do generally need cleaning. Probably, of course, I'll do it now. There'll probably be nothing in there after me saying all this, but I'm pretty sure that it will be full of dust and stuff. See if we can persuade it to come apart. There you go. Not much dust. Yeah. The brushes are pretty worn, but not over worn. I don't know if you can see all this. How clearly you can see it, I'm not sure, but you've got 4 brushes, okay, on the commutator. And yeah, we could just do a clean that up. The brushes, there's not as much dust, of course, as I was expecting, but still a fair bit of dust. And then we can clean up the commutator to make sure we get a good, there's good contact on the commutator with the brushes. I'm just not quite sure how much of this you can see, and hopefully it's clear. So we'll have a go at cleaning up the commutator. Right, yeah, I thought we'd better remove the armature altogether so we can clean it properly. So I've removed these 2 nuts here. And now I am removing, down in here there's an Allen key. Allen screw down inside, which is in there, it goes there. Okay, so I'm removing that as well, and then that should allow the whole bottom half of the motor to come away. There's that Allen screw, and then this should come off. Probably I better take the solenoid connection off first. there. Okay, and then yep, that's a sort of drive gear, sort of pinion. It's dry in there, so I'm glad we've done that, because that all needs greasing up in there for a start. Okay, now let's see. I think I'm right in saying we can get the should be able to get the armature out. I'm trying to think. It's not going to come out. I'm trying to think what I've done wrong. I'll take that off as well. I think I'm trying to think. Yeah, there we go. We have to knock the armature through this way. The problem is that when this commutator goes through, then we'll lose the. It's very hard to put back in because of the brushes, because they're all spring loaded. So all the brushes, there's not much left on those brushes, I have to say, but enough. I think there's enough on them. Right, and then end plate and armature. Looking a bit rusty in that, but I think it's fine. So yeah, we just need to clean the commutator up, give the whole thing a bit of a good clean out, and put it back together. Yeah, there's brushes. There's less on these brushes than I'd like, but there's still enough. Just need to lube them up a bit. They're not sliding well, so that means they won't be making that much good contact. You know, that one in particular is like jamming open. Okay, yeah, so we just need to clean, really just need to clean the whole thing up, put it back together, grease it where appropriate. We don't want to put lube on the commutator and that, because what happens is the oil will soak into the brushes and make them soft, and then they just leave a sticky gooey mess around the commutator, and the whole thing stops working. So we want to lube bit of WD-40 on the brush outers to make them work properly, but make sure we don't get any on the actual brushes themselves. Cleaning the commutator, has to be very careful. I'll probably just use Scotch-Brite. You can scratch it, damage it, do more harm than good very easily on the commutator. So I should just lightly clean it as lightly as possible. Okay, I'm going to set to work doing some cleaning up. Right, so there we go. I've just been cleaning up the commutator with Scotch-Brite cloth, and it's coming up a treat. Okay, you really don't want to use anything more abrasive than that if you can possibly avoid it, because you damage the commutator. Just get rid of all the grime, so that the brushes, what you're trying to do is get the brushes to make good contact with the commutator. Because obviously then you've got a good circuit, you've got better current flow, blah blah blah. So obviously it'll work better. Okay, there we go. So that's nice and clean. So then I'm going to put the commutator. I've just given the housing a quick clean out. What I'm not doing is I'm not giving the whole starter motor, painting it and so on, because basically it's not seen. It goes underneath a sort of splash cover, chrome sort of alloy splash cover, and so I've got it all working, but it's pointless making it all look beautiful because you can't see it. The only bit you do see is the end cover, and so I'll polish that up as best I can. Obviously it's not gone to the polishers, so it will never be like really shiny like the rest of the cases, but I'll do the best I can on that with a bit of Solvo, I think. Right, I shall get this housing ready to put the commutator back in using my amazingly patently clever method of doing so. Righty-ho, so I'm going to put the starter motor back together. So the first thing I'm going to do is to put the armature back in the body. And when I say my amazingly clever idea, the problem you've got is I need to put this commutator back inside these brushes. Well, there are 4 brushes, and I know from bitter experience that if you try and put the commutator in and then try and hold the brushes back, you simply haven't got enough hands and fingers. you know, you can't do it. So I've got these mini cable ties, and I've used them to pull all the brushes back into their housing. The cable ties are just at the top of the brushes, so hopefully that's the brushes are back in enough for me to get the commutator back in, then take those off, and we should be okay. The thing is that once this is in, not to let it slip out again, which is easily done. You just turn it the wrong way, whatever, out it comes. Anyway, so let's see if my painting method works. Has worked on this occasion. No, it hasn't worked yet because I've got a problem. Yeah, let's see. Right, so what I've done is I've managed to jam the brushes fully back in their housing by dislocating their mounting springs, and instead of the springs pressing against the ends of the brushes, they're jammed against the sides of the brushes. I don't know if you can see that. Okay, so I've like pulled the springs out, moved the brush out, and wedged the spring against the side of the brush to hold it fully open. So now I should be able to slide the commutator back through the brush housing. There we go. And then if I push the brushes back in, the springs should snap back into place on the ends of the brushes, pushing them against the commutator, which is where they should be. One more. There. So that's how to get the commutator back in past the spring-loaded brushes. Of course, now we have to make sure that the commutator, the whole armature, doesn't come out again. So then I have greased the mounting. Okay, where the armature goes through, and that bearing. I'm just trying to think if there's a particular location place for it. I'm sure there is. Yeah, there is. There's a slight dimple there and a cutaway in the housing, and that lines up. Yeah, good. Yeah, okay. Then I've fully greased all inside here where the starter motor gear goes, greased all that, greased down inside there. So I should now be able to put this back on. Get them in the right place. So those two go there, yeah. Come on. There we go. Yeah, good. And I'll put these two nuts back on that hold the body together, because I want to get the Allen screw back in, which of course is always going to be fiddly. Now I've got to drop it down inside, down there. So if I drop it in, what's the chances of it lining up? Oh, there we go. Okay, so I've polished up the casing a little bit, and I've put some grease on the where the spigot on the end of the armature runs. There we go, and then hopefully put the cover back on. There's a sort of slot there, and I think that goes over the where that wire is. Okay, let's have a look, see what we got. Yep, we're engaged there, that's jolly good. And we're engaged there. Good. Okay, so then I'm going to fully tighten all the mounting nuts and then that Allen screw, and then we'll get ready to put the end cover back on. But the last thing I've got to do before putting it onto the actual engine is to double check it's still working. Of course it was working, that doesn't mean it still is. So I'll wire it up and we'll give it another spin, and hopefully it's all working so we can get it on the engine. Okay, let's see if it's working. Right, so live to live, earth to earth, and then I've got like the starter switch here. Fingers crossed, and I'll touch live to live, and hopefully we'll have a nice spinning starter motor. Oh yeah! That's 100% good spinning starter motor, sorted, and so we can now get it on the bike. Right, so now we're going to fit the starter motor back onto the engine. First of all, I've put some grease on the end of the drive shaft because that goes into a little bush in the housing, and then the whole thing, it literally just slides in. We can get the, there we go, and it sits on there. Then it's held on by 3 Allen bolts and a strange little nut. So there's a short Allen bolt goes in there, the long Allen bolt goes in there, then the sneaky one is there's an Allen bolt underneath here, which is like a nightmare to get to, but hopefully we will be able to get to it. And then there's a nut that goes on from this side. So the first one is to see if I can get this one, which is down underneath the starter motor, because if I can get that in, then I'm laughing. But all the wires are in the way. I think I might have to remove the wires. I'll give it one more go, but I think the wiring for the solenoid and the starter is actually in the way. Right, I moved the solenoid wire out of the way, and that's enabling me to get in and screw that. So I've got that Allen key in loose now, that Allen screw, short Allen screw here, and long Allen screw here, which someone at some point in the past has decided to replace with a chrome or a stainless one. I don't know why, because you can't see it of course when it's in use, but there we go. Right, they're just very loosely in, because now I'm going to try and put that nut in from the other side, obviously while things are still loose. Okay, so now we're going to try and put this like top hat nut on, and it goes on. There's a bolt that sticks out of the back of the solenoid, and hopefully we can get this on. Is it going to go on? I think that's taken. Yeah, I think that's taken. Great. Oh yes, good. Okay, brilliant. So I'll tighten that up in a minute. I'm going to go round and then do up the 3 Allen bolts and then retighten that. Okay, well, it's a bit fiddly. The advantage is it comes straight off the starter motor, but it is fiddly for this hidden nut here, which if you don't know about, you're going to be sitting there for days trying to work out how to get a starter motor off. And also because of that Allen screw that's underneath the motor, and it's very difficult to get to. Okay, just to mention that actually I took this nut back off and put some Loctite on it, because of course that is the aperture for the engine breather, which then goes down into the primary chain case. So of course if that nut did work loose and then make its way down into through this aperture into the breather and then end up in the primary chain case, we don't want that to happen really. Right, so here goes. Connected the battery up, negative to live, positive to earth, and I've got the equivalent of the starter button here. And hopefully we have one rotating engine. Whew, here we go. Oh yeah. Oh, that's nice. Oh, that's good. Oh, that's so good. Oh, let's do it one more time. Oh, great stuff. And there we go. Starter motor all on. Put the cover on the breather unit. Now that we've got that nut in, we can put that cover back on. It's just held on by those 4 screws. Again, didn't well seal it because it's only a breather. Then we've got the chrome cover on the starter motor, and I think you can see now why I didn't bother cleaning the starter motor up too much, because you can't see it when it's on the bike, and you can just see this bit here, but when the carbs are on and the air filter's on, you can hardly see it at all. So there we go, we can begin in. Oh yeah, beginning to look like an engine. Obviously I've got to polish all these cases back up. You know, they're all got greasy and that where I've been fitting them, but I'll not do that to the end. And then and now the last thing is the carbs. Hoorah! A small but rather important part of the engine, the carbs, so obviously we'll be spending a lot of time getting those right.